talk about some other news and notes from 1999. It's come out that, well, some of these advertisers are going to finally acquiesce to the demands and protests of Phil Mushnick. He's positioned himself almost as like the number one enemy to the WWF. We find out that Coca-Cola is going to be dropping all of their sponsorship money for WWE. Not only that, but the Parent Teacher Council, L. Brent Bozell, he is now going to be demanding that some of these ad agencies stop promoting and doing business with the WWE. That would include the Army, the Air Force, M&M Mars, AT&T. I mean, this is a big deal, to the point that Vince even has to come out and say, now listen, this new show we're putting together on SmackDown, he says this in the Wall Street Journal, you'll see less aggression, less colorful language, less sexuality. Some of the more controversial characters won't even appear on a regular basis on SmackDown. Linda McMahon is trying to do damage control too. When you guys feel like, you know, you're battling a few different wars on different fronts here. We got talent like Chris Jericho that we thought was going to come in and we'd slide him right into a main event spot. He's not really finding his footing in the WWF right away. We've got a really top star like Mick Foley, who's been a main eventer for us and drawn a lot of money, but he's having some health problems and we don't know how much longer he's got. And our top guy is probably going to be on the shelf. And as if that's not enough, you've got all these problems with the sponsorship dollars now too. That's going to be a problem for WWE, but more importantly, for television networks, they don't want products and programming that aren't advertiser friendly. It doesn't matter how many people watch the doggone show. If you can't monetize it, it defeats the purpose of having a big audience. So now the WWE is blessed with a big audience, but man, if we lose our monetization, that's not good. That's bad for everybody. How big of a topic was this? Mushnick and the Parent Teacher Council and losing these sponsorships. Were you involved in any of those conversations?
Oh, hell yeah, Conrad. Of course I was. I was Vince's right-hand man for 20-something years. So, yeah, I was involved in them. It was there was a team of guys on the inside that were challenged with making it right and rehabilitating our relationships with the sponsors and letting them know that we were not one-dimensional. Everything was not going to be coarse like Monday Night Raw was, cutting edge, edgy, uncomfortable at times. SmackDown was going to be a lot more family-oriented. And, you know, Conrad, you might not know this, but I was on the episode 1 of SmackDown. Lawler and I. Then I lasted 1 week there. And then Vince put Michael Cole in, which was good. He should have. I applaud that decision. So SmackDown was going to be the cure for the issues. But it was a big deal. You're talking about millions of dollars off the bottom line, potentially dissolving. So it was a big deal. And we talked about it a lot. And we had to counsel. See, the talents on SmackDown at that time, Conrad, they wanted to have the same edge and the same freedom creatively that we had on Raw. They had ideas they wanted to initiate on SmackDown that just didn't get the go-ahead because we had made a commitment to lighten it up a little bit, Francis. So it worked out. But as today, everything's business as usual.
Well, if anybody is curious, you know, how and when this whole discussion about moving to PG happens, well, this is it. It's November of 1999. SmackDown is so spooked or UPN is so spooked by the news that there's all these boycotts coming, that on the Thanksgiving episode of SmackDown, where you know there's going to be silly people dressed like pilgrims and there's going to be food fights, we changed the rating from TG-14 to TVPG. Or actually, that particular show was rated TVMA because SmackDown was spooked. But now WWE is coming out and saying, no. As a matter of fact, we're going the other way. SmackDown is no longer going to be TV-14 like it had been. It's going to be TVPG. And Linda McMahon says those are just going to be minor changes that fans won't even notice. They're just going to tone down a little on the language and sexual innuendos. But she said that was always just an experiment to begin with. Well, there's no experimenting. On November 30th, Linda comes out hard with the Wall Street Journal when Coca-Cola announces that it's pulling out all of its advertising across the board. And not only that, they're sending some of that money they've been spending down to Atlanta for WCW. They had been spending $2 million a year advertising on WCW programming, and they've revealed that they're now going to earmark $3 million. So WWE loses all the Coca-Cola money, and WCW benefits from $1 million. Not only that, but M&M Mars, they're continuing to spend in the $5 million range, and she's trying to keep that in place. She doesn't want it going anywhere else. And I know that wrestling fans, man, we don't really think about the business side. We just think, oh man, I wish they wouldn't have went PG. But when you start to hear, okay, we just lost millions from Coca-Cola and there may be millions more for M&M Mars, we got to make a change. Like the advertising dollars drying up here is going to slowly but surely force a change with WWE, right?
Yeah, logical, common sense. You're overstating the obvious, my friend. We had to save the money. And Linda was a great representative of it. She wasn't. Is she on Trump's cabinet?
She is, yes. AT&T has canceled their advertising on SmackDown. M&M Mars says they are going to continue advertising on WWE programming, but no longer on SmackDown. And the Army has said that we have a contract through March of 2000, but we're not going to be advertising anymore with WWE either. I mean, this is a big deal because I just want to give the context here of when all this is happening. It's November of 1999. And in October of 99, that's when Russo left the company to go to WCW. Now, I'm not giving Russo any credit for, taking those advertisers, but I am saying I think it's interesting that the very content that the advertising community is trying to avoid, the person who was sort of pushing that to the forefront, they're not even with the WWF anymore. They're going to WCW. So when these advertising dollars go to WCW, they don't even realize it, Jim, but they're following the creator of some of the silliness that they're running from. This is a weird story when you really think.
Lack of product knowledge, Conrad, quite frankly, pure and simple. It's very easy. They got Brent Bozel's scam, for lack of a better term, his campaign against WWE that was basically created by one guy. Russo was, and it worked for a long time. It made Raw special again, but it didn't bleed over to SmackDown. We wanted to make sure, and I don't think we did a good job of making sure that the two brands, the two shows were different. If you're a sponsor and you're not a wrestling devotee, who is in that world, if it happens, it's very I don't know, kind of accidental. But God, there's no product knowledge. They didn't know that this is. Wait a minute, we're overreacting here, and this overreaction is costing this company millions of dollars if it goes through. So it was tough. It was challenging. That's a lot of money to be erased off your bottom line. A lot of money.